Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So, I want to begin our conversation with what we went through for the last 3.5 years, which was a pandemic. How did you get through that time period? How did it change you?
Oh gosh. You know, for the first 2 months of the pandemic, I think that I never got, when I say I never got dressed, I didn't do my hair, I didn't put on any makeup. I thought I couldn't believe that something like that I was living through something like that. It seems like that would have been something that happened 100 years ago, not in my time.
Yeah.
And it made me appreciate little things that I just being able to walk out and see friends, or being able to go hug my children. It was just it took a while to get used to, but I found that because I was alone so much, I was here at home with my husband. Because we were alone so much, it gave me a new appreciation for doing things that I had not had enough time to do. Things like working out in my garden, which I never do because I just basically I either work on a new album or work on a new show. And so I got to spend time in my backyard. I got to spend time just walking around my neighborhood and appreciating the beauty that I live in here in Southern California, which I tend to forget because I do get wrapped up with working. And it was quite an experience for me.
Well, I'm coming from Kansas City, so anytime I get to Southern California, it's like this bonanza of colors and things that we just simply don't have around here. So yeah, life gets busy though. And I was thinking that during the pandemic. I was thinking major recording artists were not going to come back. I figured once they realize they have a good bank account, they have downtime, they never get that there would be a level of them that may not come back. Not that they wouldn't be creative, but that there would be a shift in how they would operate life.
Well, I'm trying to think where I was in my recording schedule, but I think that I was just about to start recording a new album around that time, which got pushed back. And I remember, I work with Pisha McPhee, she's my vocal coach, and I remember going to her studio, and I remember we had special masks to wear that you could wear while you were singing. They were huge. And we just said, well, we knew that we were safe and we were just going to keep working through it. So we did. And somehow we were just able to get that recording done that year.
Sorry about that. I had a temporary glitch. I apologize.
Okay.
I apologize.
That's okay. So yeah, we just sort of powered through it, and I worked with just a small group of people when we were preparing just going through getting the arrangements done. And we just said, no, we're not going to put it on hold. We all tested and we all knew we were well. And we said, let's just go ahead and do it. So I was able over the last couple of years to get several albums done.
So talk to me about this latest album. How does it feel now that kind of the world's opened up, live shows are back, Come Fly With Me? How does this release feel for you?
This release feels really exciting. It's the first time I've ever worked with Chris Walden, who is just amazing. And the arrangements that he wrote, it was really thrilling to be in the studio with him. And the last album that I did, we had strings on the last album, and the strings were done in Budapest. So it was done, I remember sitting here at my computer in my office, and the album producer was in at his computer, and we were Zooming with the conductor in Budapest. And it was really quite a process to do that. But for this album, Chris wanted all the strings to be live. So it was really exciting being in a studio with a huge, I think it was about a 40-piece orchestra. So it was different. It was the first time I've done that. And that's the only way to fly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
This album, all the songs in this album are about travel. And I remember that it was over a year ago, I was sitting in Keisha McPhee's studio with Chris Walden, and we were trying to come up with a theme. Like we wanted there to be a through line throughout this album, because the previous albums I had done, I chose the songs because they were favorites of mine, and I wanted to record them. But this album, I really wanted a concept for it. So we were talking, and somehow we got sidetracked, and we started talking about all the places that we had been to. And I talked about how I had lived in London for a while, and that I had lived in Aspen. I lived various places, and how much I love to travel and to go away for extended times. And all of a sudden, Chris said, why don't you do an album about travel and have all the songs be about places that you love to go? So I thought that sounded really exciting to me. So we had a lot of fun just picking out the titles for this album of these songs that were places that were meaningful to me. So I hope that people listen to it, not just with an appreciation for the actual music, but for maybe giving people ideas like, oh, I could go away too. I could go to Vermont. I could go to Georgia, or wherever they feel they might have a fantasy to go to.
So you have this very divine creative spirit in you as an author and as a singer. Take me back to your childhood. How did all of this become who you are? How were the seeds planted?
You know, my grandfather was first violinist in the MGM Studio Orchestra, and
Wow.
he started working at MGM in 1934. His first film there was The Merry Widow with Jeanette MacDonald, and he worked there through the 50s. And our home was filled with music. My grandfather was a violinist. My grandmother was a pianist. They had met when they were working at the same place. And my mother was a pianist. My aunt was a pianist. She had gone to a conservatory. So there was always music in the house, and there was always singing. And my mother insisted that I learn how to play the piano when I was very young. So by the time I was 10 or 11 years old, when my parents would have parties, I would be the entertainment because I would sit at the piano and I would play and sing, and their friends would gather around with their glasses of wine or whatever, and we would just have a ball. And
Yeah.
so I think that's where it all comes from.
What was the first live show that you ever saw that blew you away?
The first live show, you know what? My parents started taking me to the theater when I was very young, probably, I don't know, like maybe 7 or 8 years old. And so we always, we saw like musical comedies like Rodgers and Hammerstein and those type of shows from the time I could remember. But the first show that I really remember that blew me away was the first time I went to New York and I saw Hello Dolly in New York, and I was in a New York theater. And of course, New York theaters are very different from any kind of venue out here in LA at that time. So here you had gigantic theaters, and there it's a very intimate experience. And I remember we were sitting close to the stage, and it was really thrilling to just be in that space, watching those actors and hearing that music.
Yeah. So was there a stage that you always dreamed that you would perform on that you actually had? What was did that happen for you?
I just wanted to perform anywhere because I loved singing, and I thought that I thought that was going to be my lifelong career. I always thought I would just I took music lessons. I had piano lessons and dancing lessons, and at one time I thought I was going to be an opera singer. So when I was 13, 14, 15, I had a opera coach, and I just had intended, and of course then I went back to just popular music, but I always thought I would have a career like that. And um, when I was probably about, I guess I was in my first or second year of college, I worked as a background vocalist for Capitol Records. And so I got that. A friend of mine told me that they were looking for a female singer for this new group that they were developing, and I should go audition. And so I went to that iconic round building in Hollywood, up to the top floor, and sat in the producer's office and played the piano and sang. And he hired me, and I worked for them for about a year. And this group that they were trying to get together never really coalesced. But I thought, well, I'll just go on from there and do something else. And then what ended up happening was I got married when I was 21 years old. And I immediately had 2 children, and that was the end of any any career aspirations that I had. So I sort of tucked all my dreams of being a performer away in my closet on a very high shelf, and I just left it there. And I did a whole lot of other things. I was a theater producer. I was president of a regional theater in Colorado, and where I think we did really great work. And then I became an independent theater producer. I worked in LA and London. And then when I had done that for several years, and I thought, no, I really want to do something where I want to be home with my children. And I went back to school and I got a master's degree in clinical psychology and became a therapist.
Oh,
And had a had a therapy practice for about 8 years. I had an office in West Los Angeles, and at that time, I decided, well, I had been talking about writing a book since I was a teenager. I had taken writing classes throughout my life, no matter, even when I lived in Colorado, I was a Colorado Mountain College, any place I could find a writing class. And finally, I woke up one morning and I thought to myself, I've been talking about writing a book since I was 15 years old. I either have to stop talking about it or I have to do it. So I terminated all my therapy clients, and I went back to UC Irvine and enrolled in their writing program. And out of that came my novel, Come Fly With Me.
wow.
And so I forgot what the original question was.
You hit it. No, we were talking about stages that you might have wanted to perform on.
Right. So anyway, my dream when I was young was that I would be on Broadway, and I had no aspirations to be a star. I would be really happy just to be in the chorus. That would
Yeah.
be fine with me. And all I wanted to do was sing. That's all.
So how do all of these right and left brain endeavors of your life come together to help you be a singer, to help you create? How did all this work for you?
I think I think what it has to do is it's about setting goals. I've always believed in, you have to have aspire to something. So whatever it is, whatever stage I've been at in my life, I've always set a goal for myself, and then I become very focused and just don't take my eye off the prize. I mean, I'm just right there. It was one thing I forgot to mention is, I was a jet pilot. And
Yeah.
so the reason I became a pilot was I was living in Aspen, and my parents lived in LA, and I missed them, and always wanted to come back and see them, but I would be freaked out by having to get on that little plane that went from Aspen to Denver so you could catch a big plane to LA. So finally my neighbor in Denver was John and Annie Denver were my
Yeah.
neighbors. So John said, he said, this is ridiculous. He said, and he was a pilot. He and his dad were pilots, and I had flown around with them in their plane. And he said, you've got to get over this. He said, why don't you learn how to fly? And he said, why don't you figure out how those airplanes stay up in the air? And I thought, well, that's a good idea. So I went down to the airport and I just said, I want to take some flying lessons. And so from the moment I had my very first lesson, the minute that airplane lifted off into the air, I was hooked. I thought it was fabulous. So I set my goal that when before I even learned how to fly, before in that very first lesson, I said to myself, I'm going to become a jet pilot. And I was very focused about doing that. And it was basically the same way with whether when I was writing a book, like just focus and work. And I am very, I have a lot of self-discipline. So when I was writing, I would get up at 5:30 every morning and write for several hours and go about my day and write again at night. And it's the same thing with singing now. That I live in the Orange in Southern California. I live around Newport Beach, in that area.
Mhm.
And my vocal coach is in LA, and everybody else I work with is in LA. So I'm on the 405 freeway 3 days a week with a 2-hour commute each way to work with them, because because it's what I do, because I'm
Yeah.
very focused. I wanted to get, I love doing these albums. I love creating this kind of music. This is where my heart is, in this kind of music. So I feel like it's my job to help keep it alive.
Absolutely. So what's the best part? What has been the best part of being a professional musician for you? What do you love the most about it?
The best part about it is getting to work with people who are creative and dedicated and so talented. I feel that I am so blessed to have worked with the people that I've worked with, and to have met just wonderful people who are committed to the same thing that I am, to making good music. And I've made we've become friends, and it feels really exciting to me to be surrounded by so many creative people.
So why do you love jazz?
Because I love it, because I didn't know I liked jazz until many years ago. A friend of mine gave me a gift of the Ella Fitzgerald, all the songbook albums that she had done. You know, the Rodgers and Hart, and the Gershwin, Cole Porter. And I thought, oh, this is this is this is fantastic. I listened to those nonstop for about 6 months. I'd listened to nothing else. And what I like about it is that there's a freedom in that kind of music, where you're not, you know, if you read music, you know, you're counting everything out and everything is set. But with jazz, it's very creative. You can change your mind at the last minute what note you want to sing, and sing something else. So it always changes. It's not repetitious. And if you look at the things that I've done in my life, I like change. So what I like about jazz is I can sing a song one way. I can sing "There's a Small Hotel," and I can sing it again and the next time I sing it, maybe I'll sing some other notes. Maybe I won't sing it the way I sang it last time.
Yeah.
That's what I
So
love.
so everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I am a really hardworking woman, that I am very dedicated. I had really good role models with my parents, and that I think some people may look at me and say, "Oh God, look, she has such an easy life." But it's easy in the fact that I make it look easy.
Yeah.
I work very hard.
Yeah. So if anyone out there wants to get the new album, any of your books, any of your previous albums, where's the best place to go?
Well, my new album is not being released until January 17th, the Come
Okay.
Fly With Me, but the previous albums, they're on Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon and every place people listen to their music these days. And my books are on Amazon and on Amazon.
Okay. Excellent. Judith, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking some time out today. Have a great 2024.
Well, Joe, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.